All great tips, Brent. Thank you.
So there it is again. Israeli art students. Or are they Mossad spies somehow amazingly shadowing all of the alleged 9/11 hijackers up until the very day, videoing the events as they unfolded? 5 dancing Israelis arrested, let go. We're not your problem. We're just here to document this event. You can also Google something called the bee thing. Again, to get into this story, and also check out the amazing piece that Carl Cameron did on Fox News post 9/11 about Israeli spy rings and about their suspicious connections to the events of 9/11. And then now, here we are, October 8th, 2010, Utah residents fearing Israeli art students prying into the new NSA data center. Pennsylvania Homeland Security boss quits over Israeli firm. We made reference to the Pennsylvania surveillance in that terror hysteria article. But Pennsylvania's Homeland Security director quit in the wake of revelations that he hired an Israeli-American agency that reported peaceful protests as potential terrorist threats. Jim Powers resigned 2 weeks after Governor Ed Rendell said that he was deeply embarrassed by revelations of a $125,000 contract with Philly-based Institute of Terrorism Research and Response, connected, of course, to Israeli intelligence. Arizona Governor Jan Brewer slams foreign interference. We have foreign nations filing lawsuits against a law a governor in the United States of America passed, as again the immigration issue burbles below the surface, as literally hundreds of people die a week in Mexico, a complete failed state now, but we don't hear about that, at least not yet. It's not politically expedient. We don't need that calamity yet. And we referenced in the article on the Paranoia Growing that Osama bin Laden has put out another single. We can take it from wearechangenewjersey.com. Environmentalist Osama bin Laden demands a green economy. The internet is abuzz with rumors of a new terror attack to be launched by alleged 9/11 mastermind Osama bin Laden, and his latest unconfirmed audio warning that America must be punished for climate change and its economic practices. Tons of links in here to CBS News and Newsweek and USA Today and Yahoo. But Glenn Zamenhof, writing for wearechangenewjersey.com, just breaks down the unbelievable nature of the things that come out. And again, another unproven Osama single. Think of it, I guess, as maybe his sort of We Are the World, his sort of benefit single to bring attention to these climate control issues. Eco-warrior Osama joins the climate camp. That's from 21stcenturywire.com. But as long as we're talking about intelligence-connected boogeymen, if we hop over to Spy Talk, Jeff Stein's Intel blog on the Washington Post, CIA hired Karzai's brother before 9/11. Ahmed Wali Karzai, the half-brother of Afghanistan's president and boss of the strategically important Kandahar province, has been on the CIA payroll for over a decade, CIA cutout Bob Woodward writes in his new book, Obama's Wars. By the fall of 2008, Woodward says, quote, Ahmed Wali Karzai has been on the CIA payroll for years, beginning before 9/11. He had belonged to the CIA's small network of paid agents and informants inside Afghanistan. In addition, the CIA paid him money through his half-brother, the president. Hamid Karzai was plucked from obscurity. Well, he was on the board of Unical, and was installed as president after U.S.-backed Afghan forces chased the Taliban from power following 9/11, making no reference, of course, to the fact that the militaries were amassing on the borders pre-9/11. Carpet of gold or carpet of bombs? I'm sure if we... Yeah, let's just do it. Let's copy and paste Ahmed Wali Karzai plus drugs. We can see that he says the stories are very hurtful. But we can also see CBS News reporting October 28, 2009, Karzai's brother, drug lord, CIA darling. He has been busted running drugs. He has been arrested for running drugs, but of course he's let go because drugs fund Wall Street. That's how it works. And as if all that crap wasn't enough, as Gil Scott-Heron would say, an article early this morning on the Wall Street Journal, U.S. contractors employ Taliban. Senate investigation says military depends on private security forces rife with criminals, drug users, and insurgents. A year-long investigation by a Senate panel has found evidence that the mostly Afghan force of private security guards the U.S. military depends on to protect supply convoys and bases in Afghanistan is rife with criminals, drug users, and insurgents. The Senate Armed Services Committee inquiry, based on interviews with dozens of military commanders and contractors, and a review of over 125 Pentagon security contracts, found evidence of, quote, untrained guards, insufficient and unserviceable weapons, unmanned posts, end quote, and other failings that put U.S. troops at risk. More alarming, the report alleges that some local warlords who have emerged as key labor brokers for private security firms are also Taliban agents. Put it as simply as I can, we have seen throughout the years that the intelligence networks, especially in the wake post-World War II, when we brought over Nazis as part of Project Paperclip, and a couple years later, we had the National Security Act of 1947 that created the NSA, that created the CIA out of the OSS, the old boys. This is what they do. As we've said before, don't you think that most folks want to be left alone to pursue their own life, liberty, and happiness? The powers that be need violence. They need stirred up people. So you can destroy a country and make people really want to fight back through the generations. Because you killed my dad, you killed my family. Now I'm going to fight the great Satan. But the way this goes on, we find people being paid. We're paying our enemies. And that's how it started in the late 70s in Afghanistan. Operation Cyclone, we funded and trained the Mujahideen to give the Russians their Vietnam. You've heard me say this time and time again. Hopefully we're picking up new listeners all the time who will then go into the research on this. On down the list of geopolitical police state war whore updates on the Terranoia Threataganda post, you can shoot people, run guns, and still win big government contracts. Danger Room reporting on that. And we'll take this from the Associated Press. Uncertainty over U.S. plans as war enters 10th year. It's make or break time in Afghanistan. The war enters its 10th year yesterday, October 7th. And it was no ordinary anniversary, so it's its 9th anniversary entering its 10th year. With American troops extra in place, this is the critical juncture to determine if Obama's revised war strategy will work and reverse Taliban momentum. How are you going to reverse that momentum when they're on your payroll? So like I said, you do have people who really want to fight the great Satan, but they don't always know who their real paymaster is. From the U.S., the ABCs of jihad. Army suicide attempts averaging almost 5 a day now, and we can get that from allgov.com. And there was a ruling in the 1998 Tanzania, East Africa embassy bombing being called a setback for the U.S. as they try and prosecute all these trumped-up intelligence-connected intel false flag ops. A federal judge in New York has barred a key prosecution witness from testifying in the trial of a suspect in the 98 U.S. bombings in East Africa after ruling that the government learned of the man through coercive CIA interrogations at a secret prison overseas. The ruling is a significant blow to prosecutors who had described the man as a giant witness in the case against Ahmed Galiani, a Tanzanian accused of obtaining bomb material, scouting the U.S. Embassy in the Tanzanian capital, and acting as a guide for Egyptian suicide bomber. Nearly simultaneous bombings in Dar es Salaam and Nairobi killed 224, including 12 Americans. Torture gets you nothing. Another unfortunate, glaring, amazing example of the selling of the American soul, just as we mentioned, bringing over the Nazis after World War II, a massive one. Resorting to torture and selling the public on the idea, with 24 and all the White House tie-ins. You gotta love this headline from the New York Times. U.S. apologizes as attacks in Pakistan continue. Dozens of tanker trucks carrying fuel to Afghanistan for NATO troops were torched near Quetta in western Pakistan on Wednesday, the third major attack on supplies since Pakistan closed a border crossing to Afghanistan a week ago, and the first at the only checkpoint that remained open. This latest sabotage came as American officials for the first time offered an explicit apology to Pakistan over a shooting that led to the closing of the other border crossing, possibly laying the groundwork for its reopening. Whoops. We're really sorry about destroying your destabilized nation. But when the CIA helped set up the ISI, the Pakistani Inter-Services Intelligence arm, and we now have basically teenage boys raised on video games, pushing a button and killing people thousands of miles away. Now, what goes right along with that story, with the U.S. apologizing as attacks in Pakistan continue, NATO contractors attacking own vehicles in Pakistan. This coming from the Big Brother Corporation. This is called a false flag attack, my friends. They come in many forms, but the idea is the same. NATO supply convoys traveling through Pakistan to Afghanistan have regularly come under attack in the past, but following Pakistan's decision to block their route through the Khyber Pass, they now face an even bigger security threat. Hundreds of tankers and trucks have been left stranded on highways and depots across Pakistan with little or no security. Taliban militants, again, on the U.S. payroll, have regularly been targeting the convoys even when they're heavily protected. But many believe it's not just the militants who pose a security threat to the convoys. The owners of oil tankers being used to supply fuel to NATO in Afghanistan say some of the attacks on their convoys are suspicious. They say there's evidence to suggest that bombs have been planted in many of the vehicles by the NATO contractors, individuals or companies who have been contracted by NATO to supply fuel and goods to forces in Afghanistan. The contractors subsequently hire the transporters who then carry the goods. We have witnesses talking about people setting bombs in the trucks. False flag activities. Blaming the violence on your political enemies for your own means. Lou Rockwell just getting right to it and noting that the U.S. is edging closer and closer to just straight invading Pakistan. As we covered last week, don't call it a war, even though dozens are dying every day. As we close this out, we start to get into a little of the police state updated stories. And we'll take it from Wired, and again from Danger Room, but thankfully by way of threataganda2, noting that, of course, it's just the Total Information Awareness Office, again, by yet another name. One program to watch them all, DARPA's Insight. They put out the call. They want to replace largely manual exploitation and chat-based operator interactions with a system that mines different inputs, including drone footage and on-the-ground intel. Super-powered surveillance. But it's worse because it's going on right in our backyard. And as we've noted, if you tolerate this, your children will be next. Students tagged with RFID chips in Smart Badge program.